Welcome to the Pivot Point podcast. This season, I'm focused on inclusive leadership and how to lead like an ally. In this episode, I will share some ideas and thoughts from my new research for my new book, Lead Like an Ally, and our new virtual leadership program on inclusive leadership, Lead Like an Ally. And I'll leave you with some actionable tips to think about and discuss with your organization. I share this information because inclusive leadership is a journey. It requires bravery and courage, and you do not have to do it alone. At Pivot Point, I believe we are stronger together. We are one. Let's dig in to this week's topic. So if you've been following so far, you know we've got a robust set of tools for you in season 4 of the Pivot Point podcast. Each week we're distilling we're distilling a key attribute of what it means to be an ally and what it means to be an inclusive leader. And I'm using those terms interchangeably. So forgive me if you don't identify with the term ally, forgive me. This is complimentary content and choose your own adventure. But that's what it means to me to be inclusive as a leader, is to really show up as an ally. But sometimes it's hard to figure out how to do that. Like, how do I even start on that journey? Because it is a journey and never ends. Sometimes we backslide, in fact. Sometimes we jump ahead. And really what this content is meant to do is for you to get some ideas to noodle on and apply at your organization. Because we know when allies apply these tools, leaders apply these tools, it's like a domino effect throughout the organization. Others get on board by you simply modeling the behavior you'd like to see more from others. So as a leader, paint a picture of what good looks like and start with yourself. So that's why each episode has a module with some thought ideas, some questions, some ideas that we're providing to get you ramped up on that ally journey, from self-awareness to self-management, to comfort with discomfort, to knowing your ally role. I'd invite you to look at those previous 4 episodes if you have not yet already. This episode will make a lot more sense, I promise, because this episode, we're talking about space for others. And when I think about space for others and how to create a space where people feel seen, heard, and that they belong, and that they can say things that might be otherwise construed as dangerous or controversial, or something we might not do here. Forbid that. Good leaders, good inclusive leaders, create space for others to really, really belong. And we know as humans, we are wired for connection. Belonging is a very, very important need for us. It's very primal. When we don't feel like we belong, we exit organizations. This is why underrepresented folks leave organizations at much higher numbers. By any metric I've seen inside my client organizations that are willing to lift that hood and look at attrition, turnover data, women, people of color, people with disabilities, people that may have been open about their sexual orientation, they're just less likely to stay if the culture is not inclusive. And how you can create that space for others to really invite them into spaces that they may not feel comfortable is a key attribute of an ally. So without further ado, I'm going to distill 5 ideas, in fact, for you in this episode. The first idea is staying open to input. I want you to be very open with your team. I want you to, instead of asserting your judgment, your perception, to lead with that, because as a leader especially, we just adapt to, okay, so-and-so said this, that must be the right answer. Instead, lean back in your chair, open your body up, signal to people you really are open from your body language. Open your hands. The hands are really important. And think about, how could I show up in a way that signals to everybody else, I want to hear your input? Try on some key phrases. I'm curious to learn more about this. I'm interested in what you think. I don't know what the answer is if people really push you to come up with something. I'm more interested in what you have to say, right? You're the expert. That kind of phrasing, when said in a genuine, authentic way, gets that space wide open for others to jump in and say, hey, I'm so glad you asked me. I actually have a ton of ideas, especially those that are in the trenches, that are experts in a key attribute of the business. Their ideas are probably going to be better than yours anyway. And that's actually a really good thing. Before I start any new project, I go to my team and say, hey, I'm noodling on this. Like, what do you think? I really want your ideas. And I use their ideas. That's another thing. If you ask for input and you don't use it, people are going to say, well, what's the point? They've asked for input before, never applied it. It doesn't mean you have to apply everything. So even saying, hey, I may not use all of your input, or after the fact, here's why I couldn't use all of your input. That's okay. They were heard, they were seen. It doesn't even matter if the decision is different as long as you were transparent about it and you tried. Second key thing for creating space for others is to be curious. Practice curiosity. That old adage, curiosity killed the cat. Not helpful. Be curious. Learn from others. Put yourself out there. Just say, I'm curious more often. And people will really pick up what you're putting down. Again, we're modeling these behaviors. We're modeling the words we want to hear from our team. The more you say it, the more you try on these key phrases, the more it spreads like wildfire throughout your organization, where you'll start picking up other people are saying it too, especially if you're in a position of influence or a leader. But we're all leaders. We do not have to be a people manager or have manager in our title to lead like an ally. It comes from everywhere in the organization. Third key idea for creating space for others, a strategy I would offer here is to really monitor meeting behavior. I can watch a meeting as an outside consultant, trainer, speaker. I can watch a meeting and within 5 minutes know if it's inclusive or not. The things I look for are, how much does everyone participate? Is it one or two people dominating the conversation? Probably not inclusive. Are people interrupted? Probably not inclusive. Do people take credit for other people's ideas? Probably not inclusive. And the list goes on. Watch your next team meeting and look around and see how decisions are made. Are all voices heard? Do we ask for people's input before the meeting, during the meeting? Make sure that people commit to the ideas that were shared? Or do we simply just go with what the key person, the most vocal, extroverted person has to say? We often default to that, and those are not the best decisions, I promise you. Fourth thing in creating space for others is practice perspective taking. And when you think about Teresa Wiseman came up with this concept, and it's about, instead of offering your perspective in a situation, think about the other person's perspective. And so when someone comes to me with a conflict or a challenge, so-and-so did this, I often ask them, what do you think their perspective was? Assuming they had good intention, what might that be? What were they hoping to gain from that experience? Assuming that their intention didn't match the impact that they created can really, really make a difference and shift your own perspective, so you're more likely to listen to someone else's perspective. As humans, we are hardwired to recognize patterns of behavior, make assumptions, and just go on autopilot and subconsciously behave and decide in a way that's aligned with what we think that pattern and assumption aligns to. Park it in the back of your brain, and you got to practice. This is a muscle you got to flex over time, and you will get good at it, I promise you. Is instead of jumping to a conclusion, instead of making an assumption about something you have no idea what might be really going on, simply say, well, what do you think the other perspective was? Or if you yourself are in a conflict or a situation you can't resolve on your own, ask yourself, what could the other person's perspective be? I do that with my clients all the time. Projects get put on hold, delayed. You think they're a go for something, and then it doesn't happen. And I think they must have other priorities going on. I am not the most important thing to them right now. They've got 12 other things on their list. That really helps me not take things so personally. Rarely is it about us. We are wired to kind of think everything's about us with our egos. We got to check those egos sometimes and learn from other perspectives, practice perspective taking. Fifth key thing to creating space for others, help others be seen and heard. So when you think others, again, underrepresented folks, people of color, people of different genders, people with different abilities, the list goes on. It goes way beyond visible attributes. But for the simplicity of this exercise, think about people that are less heard, less seen inside your organization. How can you champion them? We talked about your ally role a couple episodes ago. This is where this comes in. I really want you to think about the people that aren't seen and heard, right? The people that might be more introverted, more quiet, the people that might have a different experience, or, the person that likes to play devil's advocate. No one listens. Whoever it is, find one of those people that's kind of gone rogue, bring them in, practice practice getting them involved in the conversation. Ask them, how could I help you be seen and heard in this meeting? I've noticed you have these great ideas, but the team hasn't quite advanced them. How could I be helpful? How could I support you? What's one thing I could do to help make sure your voice is heard, your ideas are heard, that you are seen, that people seek out your input? As an ally, there is nothing more powerful than helping someone else that otherwise may not be seen and heard, because you're helping them belong, which we know is so critical to creating an inclusive culture. If you like this episode, I invite you to check out nextpivotpoint.com. There you will find a full set of 4 seasons of content with interviews, candid conversations, hot topics, all that good stuff. You can sign up for the complimentary 30-day preview of our new program, Lead Like an Ally. It's a virtual inclusive leadership program. First 30 days are on us, and order our new book, Lead Like an Ally. I appreciate you listening to this episode. Who do you know that needs to hear this message? Hit the share button and connect with me on LinkedIn. Simply search Julie Kratz, Kratz. I host this podcast because I believe we are stronger together. We are one.